What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. And this is actually not actually a podcast version. This will not go into the podcast feed. This is our YouTube show pregame before the 2022 NFL Draft. It has finally arrived. And when I say finally arrived, I mean only 2 more hours until the actual NFL Draft starts. I would say this is up there for me in terms of drafts that like the lead up has felt extremely long. Ordinarily there's this shifting of information where we know X picks, or like we're sure about X picks. It's like, okay, time to focus on the rest of the top 10. I don't feel like we've gotten past like 7, and maybe we've gotten to like 10 or discussed 10.
Based on our podcast earlier today, we haven't gotten past 2. We didn't even agree on who's going to go second overall.
That's so true.
Also, for the haters and the losers out there, we did start almost on time, 6:01. That's a new record for the podcast. Not bad for the pre-game show. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button. You may vote in the chat. Yes, have you smashed the like button yet? Yes, Brinson sucks. No, Brinson sucks. I don't know if we have any more Brinson Sucks hats laying around, but smash the like button anyway. Turn on alerts. We will be live coming up after the draft to break down everything that happens and what promises to be a zany round 1. How would you guys characterize the lead up to this draft so far, Breech?
Well, for me,
I didn't even mention John Breech, Josh Edwards, Chris Trapasso joining me. Sorry, I kind of, we did this like 2 hours ago, so I'm feeling a little,
Well, it's funny that you were talking about the lead up to the draft and how long it's felt like. As someone who is a Bengals fan, it's actually been a shortened draft season because they were playing into mid-February and now they're picking at the back end of the draft.
That's right, because they lost in the Super Bowl.
25 years. Yeah, some people remember it like that. I don't remember what the final score was. It's something or other. But it has been crazy because it just seems like information shifts every week. I mean, you just have to look at the draft odds to get an idea of what's been happening. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson was a heavy favorite to go with the first pick overall 2 weeks ago, last week, and now he's not even in the top 2 in the odds. And so we've seen that kind of all the way down the line, and things keep shifting, information keeps changing. I mean, we talk about smokescreen season. This has been the ultimate smokescreen season. Maybe it's because it's in Vegas. The NFL wants to put on a show, but the smokescreens have smokescreens. I don't know what's going on. No one knows what's going on. This draft is crazy.
Traps, how you feeling so far about what's it's hard. It would be hard to feel good about any sort of mock draft. Like, I think the top mock draft score is gonna be like 10 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even really paying attention. I completely forgot what my mock draft picks were, even in the top 10 at this point, because I know it's just gonna be thrown to the fire immediately the first hour of the draft. One thing I will say that I think has made this draft interesting and maybe gives it potential to be a lot better of a draft class than we thought. Like, beyond the quarterbacks, there's been this widely thought opinion that it's a bad draft. There's not really elite talents. I think the fact that Derek Stingley got hurt 3 games in, Kyle Hamilton got hurt in September, early October, Jameson Williams tears his ACL in the national title game. Like, those are 3 marquee prospects that have had this little asterisk next to their profile this whole pre-draft process. I mean, Stingley ultimately did work out at the LSU Pro Day in early April, but I think Kyle Hamilton's the best player in this draft class. Derek Stingley's the second best player. So I think we could, after having last year this, world-renowned quarterback class, and Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson were not really that good, this draft class that's been kind of dubbed as a bad class, not exciting. I think beyond tonight, once we get into the season and the first couple of years for these players, especially the guys that go in the first round, we could look back and say, actually, that class wasn't that bad. We just kind of had a weird pre-draft process with a lot of guys sitting out the combine and a few of the marquee talents being injured.
An eternal optimist as a draft prognostic, as a draft evaluator. It's like, you're like, I can't imagine having spent months and months and months and like hours and hours and hours watching all this tape, and then it turns out every one of them sucks. Josh, I do think that there's something to the idea that the 2021 NFL draft was chock full of elite talent, and the 2022 NFL draft is chock full of like this really middle class of talent, and maybe that has to do with The fact that the COVID year, added there's an extra year for everybody. So the elite players bounced early, and maybe some other guy, Kenny Pickett, without that extra year, is not in the discussion for the first round. He's like working at a Starbucks or something right now.
Yeah,
that's probably mean, but you get the point.
It's the ebb and flow of the NFL draft. I mean, you have good years, you have bad years. That's just the way that it works. We happen to be in a little bit of a valley this year, but this is still a great opportunity for teams to build out their roster. You can still find good players. You may not find the number of blue chip players that we've had in previous years, but you can still get difference makers on your roster for this coming season. And what happens tonight will ultimately determine if you are Breech's Bengals playing in the Super Bowl next February.
That's right. All right. Debo wants me to run through what the action that I've got on this draft so far. In hour number 2, we'll get to your thoughts on my action once I get done reading. That was a joke about.
Right, are we going to vote the whole show to what action you have? Because we'll be here all night.
The 54 minutes.
Everything
54 minutes as I read off my bets. I will say back in February, I made this is the first draft. No, wait. I had Malik Willis to be the first overall pick back on February 5th at 66-1. I don't hate it. Just splash it a little bit. One I do hate is Charles Cross to be the first overall pick. Although I guess actually, like at the time, he looks like he might be a top 5 pick, so maybe it's not that terrible. Real
quick, your bets that you've mentioned so far are a good indicator of how crazy this draft season has been, because when you made those bets, they were, they're long shot bets. They're not supposed to necessarily hit, but they're at least somewhat realistic. And then here you are 3 months later, like laughing at yourself. What was I thinking? Well, you were thinking this made sense in February, makes 0 sense now.
It makes 0 sense now. I have got a bunch of first quarterback bets in. We can bring that up on Caesars if we want to just sort of see how the CLV will compare to what we have out there. I believe I did this. All right, so let's see. I've got whenever you're ready, Debo, fire that puppy up there. I've got, oh boy, one of them's terrible. So first quarterback taken. Let's see. I've got Malik Willis, who I think is he's minus 225. I've got him at plus 150. So I'm happy with that. Take plus money out all day. I don't think I have any Kenny Pickett. No, I do not have any Kenny Pickett, but I do have Matt Corral at 10-1. That's bad value, it looks like now, but not exceptionally bad value. And I don't think it's going to hit. That was certainly in the pre-combine process. I got Desmond Ridder at 25-1, now down to 10-1. So I feel pretty good about that. And I actually think that was a little bit live tonight. And then I scroll down a little bit, and let's just see how much he moved. Sam Howell. Ooh. There's some people who started blasting Sam Howell, first quarterback taken at 40-1. He's now down to 20-1 at Caesars. So I have those 4 quarterback backs. Malik Willis plus 150, Matt Corral 10-1, Desmond Ridder 25, and Sam Howell 40. How would you, Traps? You shrugged your shoulders like kind of politely. How would you assess my profile there, first quarterback taken?
No, I think the fact that you got in on some of that action relatively early on, you got some better odds than what they are today. You mentioned in our afternoon show, if anyone that was watching or listening already, that there is a rumor out there that the Seahawks love Sam Howell and that he could be the 9th pick. So if that hits, then you'll be very happy. You'll be a much richer man than you already are. I think they all sound pretty good. And it's kind of to what Breech said, you having that array of quarterback or first quarterback selected picks just proves like we really have no clue. And it's actually the smart thing to just sprinkle on all of them. Hope you get it early enough to get the good odds to then ultimately hit on one of them. This is the most uncertain draft we've seen, but certainly at the quarterback spot. In the past, we kind of have an idea like, it's going to be Kyler, then probably Daniel Jones, then Dwayne Haskins. But in this, like something like that, in this draft class, no one really right now even knows the order whatsoever.
What my favorite thing about Brinson reading off his picks as we look at the odds up here from Caesar Sportsbook is that he was like, oh, I've got Malik Willis and Desmond Ridder and Matt Corral. And we all know what's going to happen is that Kenny Pickett's going to be the first quarterback on the board, and Brinson's going to lose.
6 to the Panthers.
6 to the Panthers, right? The ultimate hell for me is man, I tell you what, if the Panthers took Kenny Pickett and passed on Icky and I lose all those bets and like they pass on my NC State guy, I mean, not that I'm like really a Panthers fan.
You're moving out of North Carolina.
yeah, it would be pretty rough.
Brinson,
Any thoughts
is your
on?
best odd pick? Is that Jordan Davis going in the top 10? Like, is that the biggest potential payout for you?
No, I'll get to some bangers in a second. Josh, your thoughts on? I mean, it's not like, look, I might be sweating this overnight. You know, like there's a chance we don't see one. I think we get one in the teens, though, at least.
Yeah, I think we do too. I think Malik Willis is going to go in the first round at some point. I think Kenny Pickett probably gets in there somewhere. And then I think Desmond Ridder still has a chance. I mean, there was a point on our draft prop show several weeks ago where I think Desmond Ridder was 30-1 to be the first quarterback taken. We advised that you should probably sprinkle a little bit on that. I still don't know that it's likely, but the numbers have obviously moved in that direction where you have something in play tonight for that to be a possibility. I think at the end of the night, we have at least one quarterback, probably two, and maybe three is the way that I look at it, with Willis being the most likely.
Also worth noting, just to get it, I've got the under 2.5 quarterbacks, but it's at plus 181. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel kind of good about that. That's a pretty good, like it's. I think it's down to like maybe even money at this point to be over under 2.5. Like people just don't know. But they don't want the exposure of losing, almost a 2-1 on all those quarterbacks. If we got, let's get some. If you got draft questions in the chat, lob them up. We are happy to answer them. Any and all, make sure you smash the like button if you are watching. All right, Traps, Zion Johnson. We sort of touched on this earlier in the show, but that's okay because this is just a YouTube show and we're pre-gaming for the draft. Zion Johnson, lock for round 1, yes or no?
Absolutely. I think in other draft classes that were a little bit stronger at the interior offensive line position, he kind of would feel more like a early round 2 pick, but it's Tyler Linderbaum, Zion Johnson. And if some people like Kenyon Green, that's really it at the guard spot. And we've been talking about the pre-draft process. I think more so than maybe any other blocker in this class, Zion Johnson has aced the pre-draft process. The fact that he was really good at the Senior Bowl, he stayed after practice the one day and showed some reps snapping the ball at center. I think there's a lot of teams like from the Steelers at 20, Cowboys at 24, Bills at 25, Buccaneers, maybe even the Patriots at 21. With all those teams, they're kind of sort of in need of a guard. Zion Johnson feels like he'll be the consensus top guard on most teams' big board. So, yeah, I would say right now in a draft of uncertainty, Zion Johnson's a lock for the first round.
Josh Norris, friend of the show, points out in the chat, get to the Quay Walker bets. We talked about those. They never showed up on my friggin' site. So, like, there's a bunch of people who have like Quay Walker 25-1 to be first linebacker. There's a bunch of people who have Quay Walker under 35.5 that I know. And so when Quay Walker, Josh, I believe mocked in his mock at Underdog Fantasy, had Quay Walker going like top 15. So when Quay Walker does go that early, I'm just gonna be like, ha ha ha, yay everybody, that's great. But I love Quay Walker. He's probably going early. I don't know that we've seen. Trying to think of the people who he might have steamed up the most over the last 48 hours, Josh.
There was some steam early, like a couple weeks ago, for him maybe being a first rounder, but like the top 20 hype, yes, was like started last night.
I think Dalton Cates, who's in the fantasy space and in like draft chat with us, had turned some people on to Quay Walker, first linebacker, taking 25-1. Look at his over 22.5, minus 130 at Caesars. It was like it's moved up 18 spots. I mean, that's a wild move up over the last 48 hours, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, back to April 8th, I wrote an article about the prospects that could be taken in the first round that we were not discussing, and Quay Walker was one of those players. I also had a mock draft this morning where I had Quay Walker going number 18 overall to the Philadelphia Eagles, the first linebacker off the board. So I am a believer in Quay Walker. I think he's going to go in the first round tonight because the NFL values traits. They value those, athletic linebackers in the first round, much like we saw from Jamin Davis last year. Will, last year we were having a conversation about Jamin Davis being the first linebacker taken. Yeah. It nearly happened because he got so much steam in the end as this athletic linebacker, and history is replaying itself this year with Quay Walker.
You know what? You just, what is it? You live long enough to be a villain. Is it what is it? What's the line? The Batman line.
You're a hero if you either die a hero or live long enough
to be a villain. Right. Prisco Prisco, if Jamin Davis had gone first or been the first linebacker taken last year, Pete would have been a hero because, man, we had like 50 to 1 or something.
Well, and just Quay Walker was just to give you an idea of like how differently people feel about them. Looking at Traps' mock, he has them going to the Patriots. Then you look at Ryan Wilson's mock, he doesn't have him in the first round. So you're talking about, and it seems like a lot of prospects are like that this year. It's so polarizing where some team might have somebody like that ranked top 15 on their board, surefire first rounder, and other teams are like, that guy's bottom half of the second round, maybe. So that's part of the thing that makes this year's draft so crazy is that it just seems like each team has such a different opinion on almost every single player in the draft.
Indeed. Okay, so any other, let's see, anybody got a question they want to get to? Otherwise, any chance? Oh, here we go. Dylan Boyd asked, what do you think the Cowboys are planning on doing? I personally want Linderbaum, but I know there's been rumblings of us picking Tyler Smith or Zion Johnson. So the Cowboys have this thing where, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong about this, but like Blogging the Boys has covered it. They always draft one of their official top 30 visits in the first round. Like that's just what they do. Maybe there's an exception during the COVID season or whatever, but generally speaking, dating back to basically since Jerry turned over some power to Stephen Jones and Will McClay, that's how they approach it. They want guys they're familiar with. They want guys they visited with. I don't remember if Tyler Smith is one. I'll look it up real quick. I know Zion Johnson is one. I'm not sure on Linderbaum. Any thoughts on that approach with the Cowboys take? Don't all answer at once.
No,
Josh.
I don't. I don't.
Josh, sorry.
I think they should take an offensive lineman. And that's kind of the direction that I've gone in most of my recent mock drafts because this Dallas Cowboys offense has been reliant on the offensive line over the year. I mean, they didn't run the football as well last year as what we had seen from them previously. And I think it's related to the decline of their offensive line. You're getting some aging prospects. You've been dealing with injuries. You've now lost Lyle Collins. You've lost Connor Williams. So you have to start adding some assets back into that unit. And I think by taking an offensive guard or maybe even Tyler Linderbaum is a smart strategy in this first round.
So I am not seeing Linderbaum on their official visit. Zion Johnson is one. Then who is the other one? Tyler Smith.
Kenyon Green is another that I think would be under consideration.
Kenyon Green could work. Quay Walker's on there too. I mean, yeah, what are they at 24?
Yeah, 24.
I mean, 22 and a half. Like it sounds like he's going to go earlier.
Somebody asked about Zion Johnson earlier, right? That was one of the questions. It'd be shocking if he falls because it feels like a perfect landing spot in Dallas with the Cowboys taking him. And then you go a little bit further down. If he somehow gets past 24,
Cardinals at 23 are a good
Cardinals
chance.
at 23. The Buccaneers just lost both of their starting guards from last season. They're at 27. I'd be shocked if he fell below 27 somehow.
Yeah, to Josh's point about how they lean on the offensive line. They did look at several wide receivers. Traylon Burks is one who might be there at 24 that they could potentially take as well. I mean, everybody's been like, Jerry taking an Arkansas guy. Yeah. Oh man, I just can't even contain my excitement. Did you hear Jerry the other day, their press conference where he's like talking about who makes the decisions on the picks? And he was like, yeah, like for instance, Steven was the one who really loved Taco Charlton, but I love Micah Parsons. That was my pick. That was my call. Steven was like, F you, Dad. Like, that's not what happened. Like,
that was great.
You're the one who wanted Johnny Manziel in 2014, and I took Zach Martin. But how it goes. So yeah, Zion Johnson and Kenyon Green would both really fit. Bernard Raymond as well. If they end up going offensive line, that's three guys who certainly check all the boxes for what the Cowboys could potentially need, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think those other positions, maybe linebacker, they re-signed Leighton Vander Esch. Micah Parsons is going to be an edge rusher. They say they're going to move him around, but he's not going to be an off-ball linebacker. So really, offensive line, maybe a receiver. And it's felt like I've kind of tried to stay off my phone the last couple hours because I know I'm going to be staring either at this camera or my computer for the next 8 hours and then tomorrow on Saturday. But it feels like there's Mad Lib reports where it's just enter a team name, is looking to trade up to enter a team position in the first round. But I did see before I put my phone down this afternoon that like there were rumblings about the Cowboys potentially wanting to move up. Like they were already trying to move up from 24. I don't know how you do that before you know who's available, but maybe they're worried about Zion Johnson not ultimately falling to them. Or to me, what that would indicate if they want to trade up, that they do want one of these receivers to replace Amari Cooper.
Yeah, either one of those could make sense. And I think that the Cowboys trade rumblings came from Jane Slater of NFL Media. So, it's not exactly like, not like every jabroni knows somebody these days. Like even I, like everybody knows some. Everybody's like, oh, like I heard from a guy that all right, Debo, let's get another question up there on the old Chatteroony. Hit the like button while you're waiting for Debo to figure out how to operate the chat.
I'm hitting the
After
like
waiting,
button
I need to put it on the record. I think Quay Walker will be way, way overdrafted if he's a first-round pick. I did not see it with him at all on film.
No.
So, like, I have him at 21 to the Patriots. He's athletic. He's big. He can't cover.
So you mocked him overdrafted too.
What's that?
You mocked him being overdrafted too.
Yes, I mocked him just trying to get the picks right, but he graded way lower than that for me. And I tweeted it last night. He reminds me a lot of Rashaan Evans, who was a first-round pick in 2018. Athletic, downhill thumper from an SEC school, Alabama, and he played out his 4 years in Tennessee. Wasn't very good, and now he's on a different team. So Quay Walker will go early, but I'll be on the record, and I'll eat my words if he becomes an all-pro in year 2. I just think Quay Walker is going to be picked way higher than he should. He should be a day 2 or even a day 3 pick, in my opinion.
Ooh, day 3.
Scott Vetter in the chat wants to know, will Jahan Dotson be a round 1 pick? Josh, it feels like that is a fait accompli, that he could actually. So if we've got this is the other thing about these wide receivers. You can say like, oh, Jameson Williams, JMO is my number 1, or Drake London is my number 1. Garrett Wilson, however you want to do it. Chris, you can say Chris Olave is your number 1, but like, it's not, it wouldn't be that insane if Jahan Dotson was the first wide receiver taken, right? Probably unlikely, but it's not that crazy if a team loves him and nobody's taking a wide receiver by 10.
I would be very surprised.
It would be crazy, but like not.
Yeah, just because I value Garrett Wilson and Jameson Williams that much more, but I certainly think that he's going to go in the first round. We have seen a lot of projections that suggest the wide receiver run could begin as early as number 8 overall to the Falcons. And if that happens, then you look at the Jets at number 10, Washington at number 11. We've even mocked wide receivers to Minnesota at number 12. There's a lot of opportunities for teams to take wide receivers in the top 12. And I think it's going to play out that way. So if the run begins early, then suddenly there's some urgency for these other teams, Kansas City, New Orleans, maybe Los Angeles, to move up and get one of these players. And I think once those 5 options come off the board, and I think they will in the top 20, there's going to be some teams in the latter half of the first round that say, I've seen Jahan Dotson win at all 3 levels of the football field. I'm comfortable taking him in the first round. I think he does get in the first round at the end of the night.
Yeah, and you look at the bottom of that, there's so many receiver-needy teams down there. The Packers seem like they'd be a good landing spot. The Chiefs, if they don't find a way to trade up. And you look at Dotson.
Well, and to your point, Breech, by the way, his over-under, if anybody who's listening or watching, smash the like button. But, if you think he goes to the Chiefs or the Packers, 29.5 gets you, unless the Chiefs take a defensive player with their first pick. I would take the under 29.5.
How upset would you be if you took the under and the Chiefs drafted him, but at 30 instead of 29?
Pretty friggin' upset. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
But both of those places seem like pretty good landing spots for Dotson. And it feels like if he's still on the table, because you talk about an offense that's not exactly known for being prolific at Penn State, and he's out there putting up over 1,000 yards, catching over 90 passes. You put him in an offense with Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers when he was putting up those numbers. I don't even know who Penn State's quarterback was in 2021, but I know he wasn't great. So when you put him with a quarterback like that, it just seems like he's somebody who could contribute right away. So I would be shocked if he dropped past Green Bay or Kansas City now in the first round.
Yeah. I'm probably not betting Jahan Dotson 50-1 first wide receiver taken, but I've certainly made worse bets. And I think he's going first round.
I think you've made the point in a previous podcast that Henry Ruggs, nobody expected him to be the first wide receiver taken. So, crazier things have happened. It just seems unlikely as we sit here less than 2 hours before the draft.
And I should note too, shout out to my buddy Will Newman, who texted me and said, we bet Jahan Dotson under earlier today. We did do that, actually. I have the under Jahan Dotson. We hadn't gotten to the over-unders yet, but I have under Jahan Dotson 30.5 at minus 140. And I think Breech, that's where you saw that movement there where they're like, all right, we can at least potentially take out like 25% of the Chiefs, decision-making here by, like, all right, like, maybe we're going to lose this, but at least we won't lose like all of it if the Chiefs go, because it was 30.5, now it's 29.5. It does feel like it would be really tough for Dotson to make it. Cause we could see a situation where the Packers grab, somebody with their first pick at 22 and say, we're going to gamble to see who gets down to 28 in terms of wide receivers. And then at the same time, we could see, what I'm saying is like, it could be 28-29 where the receivers go back to back or the Packers may not want to deal with the Chiefs jumping them at 29 to 28, whatever it is. There's tons of different possibilities. We saw Lewis Seen, one of our top projections for Roger Goodell to mispronounce his name during the first round. Josh had a good point earlier. It's like, it could definitely be like Lewis Sign, but it is Lewis Seen. Chris Quigley asked, Lewis Seen, first round, how are we feeling at Caesars? His over-under 29.5, Josh. We feeling good about first round?
I do. I'm a little less confident in this one, but I do think he gets into the first round just because of how he tested at the NFL Combine. I've made this argument for a few other prospects, but I'll say it again. The NFL is a traits-based league. I mean, they are looking for those players that test off the charts, and Seen obviously did that in Indianapolis. So I would look for him to probably go in the first round, but there are some other safeties in the conversation where, maybe a team prefers a Daxton Hill or a Jaquan Brisker over a player like Lewis Seen.
Newman actually texted me. He's like, no, we don't have Dotson. I was like, wait, I know I have Dotson. I bet Dotson at some point today. So Newman, if you're listening, go bet Dotson under 30.5 before it drops down to 29.5. I like Seen to go in the first round here, Traps. The other bet that you could make if you were less sure of Seen and maybe more confident in Dax Hill, you can lay the lumber at like over 1.5 safeties at minus 286. And I guess there could be other guys that creep in. Do you see Seen as a first round pick?
Yeah, I think he'll go in the first round. And I would like, even with that juice, I would like the over 1.5 safeties in round one. If we're going to call Daxton Hill a safety, it feels like Josh said, because of the athleticism, what he showed at the combine, and then just on film at Georgia, you first watch his film, Lewis Seen, and you see this hard hitter. You think he's kind of a throwback type that's not going to transition well to the NFL. He made a lot of plays in coverage too. So he has the range that I think a lot of teams will like. And like, we're going to get Kyle Hamilton somewhere in the top half of the first round. I don't think he's going to be viewed that much higher than someone like Lewis Seen or Daxton Hill, maybe even Jalen Petrie or Jaquan Brisker. So the safety position, I think, is growing in value, and we will see 3 or maybe even 4 go in the first round.
Ooh, that's what I like to hear. You lay like, and I did see after I hit it at minus 286 at some point in the afternoon, it moved up to something like, if Debo's going to first safety or drafted, I'm kind of curious about this, but I saw over under safeties get cranked up to like minus 300 something. If you're laying 3-1 Breech, I don't know if that's exactly what I want to do, but
well, I mean, it was set at 1.5. That's where it started. And
I think it's still 1.5.
I mean, which is insane because Kyle Hamilton's going to get drafted. So boom, you've got one. So all you need is one other safety to get drafted to hit that over. And it seems implausible that there would not be at least one other safety draft, especially with all the guys available that Traps and Edwards just mentioned. The one thing that's interesting though about Seen is just that, like, remember when Al Davis, if you were a wide receiver and you ran 4.340,
shift they made here.
They moved it to 2.
Two.
They're going to give everyone the push. That's what they want. I still like the over there.
Yeah.
And so you had the Raiders and Al Davis. They were always just, hey, that guy ran a 4.3 40 at the combine. We're drafting him because we want fast receivers, and that's the only thing we draft. And so some general managers love speed, and that's what, I think Josh said that that Cine had great numbers at the combine. He tested well. He ran under 4.4 in the 40. And so for some guys, if they have these guys close to equal, that becomes a deciding factor. So I would be surprised if he's taken in the first round, just even in the early 20s. Might not be close to 20.
Did we just get I thought somebody in the chat said something. I fell for it. Keep going. Sorry.
Oh no.
I bit on it.
Classic Brinson.
And I actually have Baylor's Jalen Petrie as my second-rated safety right now. I think of him very highly. He's a very instinctual player. He's always around the football. I don't think the NFL sees it the same way, but another guy that we're keeping an eye on here in the top 50 picks.
Hey, no jokes about breaking news in the chat. Okay. Like I've got my phone here and like I got like 700 different alerts on Twitter, like Twitter alerts. I looked at them like, oh my God, well, at least one of them has to be the breaking news. No breaking news jokes leading up to the draft. I got to move my TV at some point during this.
What I find fascinating about this whole safety situation, I have Daxton Hill and Jalen Petrie listed as corners in my big board because I watched them on film and I barely saw them at safety. Daxton Hill and Jalen Petrie, who Josh just mentioned, were outstanding as like their slot corners. I mean, Daxton Hill's a little bit bigger. Jalen Petrie more that traditional nickel cornerback size. That I wonder what happens if, like, say the Bills love Daxton Hill, they have their safeties, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, and they like write down Daxton Hill defensive back or cornerback, if that would change anything. Or are they like officially safeties like in Caesars and in all of the sports books? Or how does that work? Because I'm pretty sure Petrie and Hill had way more snaps, almost double in the slot than they did just as a traditional safety last year.
Yeah, look, I hope that the NFL isn't categorizing by your big board, or else I'm out of some heavy juice here. What else we got in the chat? I think there was an Elam question, maybe. Kaiir Elam, first round, the Florida cornerback. Based on the last, I am kind of, this is one like with Quay Walker, just because of the outs that I had or outs that I have. I didn't get any Quay Walker under, and it was like 40.5 or something like that. I mean, man, that's just such a good, it would have been such a good look because it looks like he is a stone cold lock to go in the first round. I mean, he's just one of those guys that you keep hearing like more and more buzz about. I mean, doesn't that feel like it's a done deal?
Kaiir Elam is the guy I have mocked going to the Cincinnati Bengals. So that puts him in the first round. Done.
Oh, there you go. He was 32.5 earlier today. If you can find anything above 32.5, I think that is a worthwhile pick because, I mean, it's Ben Solak said on the pod the other day that you see a lot of times cornerback is just sort of a late first round position that teams flock to a lot. That's just, for whatever reason, there's like some safety at the cornerback position, or maybe like some cornerbacks fall and people jump on that. Oh, this is a good one. Justin Palmier points out that Bovada's been hanging a McDuffie, Penning, Zion Quay first round parlay. All have to be drafted in the first round. 4-1. You hammer that. Those dudes aren't getting out of the first round, not in this draft. Right?
Who are the four again?
McDuffie, who's
Penning. Okay.
Penning ain't going out of the first round.
Zion ain't going to the first round. McDuffie could be the only one that may not, but the other three seem like locks.
Is Elam going ahead of McDuffie?
I think he could.
I would.
Oh, wow. All right.
The thing with this draft class that I think we kind of get lost is, because we see the media projections where these guys are picked, everybody's got the same names. I don't think the league sees it the same way. I think there's a larger pool of players that are under consideration. And I think when you look at the players that typically are taken in the first round at the cornerback position, you're looking for, man coverage capabilities. So a guy like Kaiir Elam is going to be of more interest because of his size and what he's done in press man coverage. At the same time, Trent McDuffie does not quite have as short arms as Roger McCreary, but we have knocked Roger McCreary as being not being a first round pick because of his arm length. Trent McDuffie is not far behind. So as much as I like the player, that's going to be a consideration for NFL teams as we get in the second half of this first round.
Yeah, and to Josh's point, Kyer Elam, a little over 6'1" and ran 4.39 at the combine. So Josh is right. Traits galore. That's what teams look for in the first round, and especially at the cornerback spot. There are some shorter armed corners in this class to get super nerdy, but Kyer Elam being a little taller and having the speed, he kind of ticks the box. And he's only 20 years old of the traditional profile at the cornerback spot to go in the first round.
Would you be hesitant to take the over on the cornerbacks at 4.5? I mean, if we got Elam, McDuffie, and then the big two, you might need Andrew Booth.
Over. Pound the over. Pound the over.
Yeah, I was going to say pound the over. Yes.
That was my biggest prop bet is on over 4.5 quarters.
Really?
Yes.
I think Stingley, Gardner, Elam, Kyler Gordon get in there, and then you're hoping that McDuffie or probably McDuffie, quite frankly, for me. I don't think Andrew Booth is going to go in the first round as of now.
But I mean, so you're almost halfway there just with Sauce and Stingley. And so, you know, like you guys just said, McDuffie gets you 3, and then you just need a couple corner needy teams, whether it's Elam or Gordon. It just feels like you're at 3 easily. So you're just kind of keeping your fingers crossed that 2 other guys go. And corner is a hot position in the NFL draft. I mean, it's one of those that teams obviously covet and they value a lot. And we see a lot of corners go in the first round all the time. I think the over-under last year was 4.5. And we saw, I think, 5 or 6 get taken. And just teams love drafting corners because it's a high-value position.
Yep.
I agree. Benjamin wants to know, Arnold E. first-round pick. I assume that's Arnold.
Ebiketie?
Yeah, Ebiketie. I got it right the last time I had to say it, but I couldn't remember what it was.
Brinson did not want to pronounce his last name.
That's correct.
So when I first sent in my last mock draft, last night, I did have Arnold Ebiketie there. I switched him out last minute this morning. It feels like to me his tape is of first round caliber, but I've heard zero buzz about him on Twitter. He's 6'2", a little shorter, 250 pounds, late bloomer, transferred from Temple to Penn State and had a big season, already 23 years old. If it feels like, we were just talking about late first round corners, there's usually some late first round edge rushers. It feels like it would more likely be George Karlaftis, Boye Mafe, as opposed to someone in Arnold Ebiketie who's a little smaller and just for some reason there's no major first round buzz about him. But if he's like the 32nd pick in the draft, I wouldn't be shocked. But right now I would bet him to be one of those first picks in round 2.
I don't know what his number. Do we have his good luck Googling his number?
He's good.
All right, I guess you can Google Arnold. You can control F Arnold. I don't know about Ebiketie if I can type that correctly into my browser. I don't see him in there. They might not have Devo is always better than me.
There we go.
I'll refresh here.
Every time Brinson is trying to do this, like it's his first time on a computer, and Devo's out here. He's got it up before Brinson even got to the end. And Arnold.
One of us is talking into a microphone while live on YouTube and on a streaming show, and one of us is better at his job than the other one, and that's Devo is better at his job than me. But whatever. Over 32.5, the juice is to the over. I mean, I think in one of the
this is basically, do you think he's in the first round? Because it's 32.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's so I would probably say no, but I mean, if he snuck into the back end of the first round, it wouldn't be crazy. The problem is you start to do these bets and you start to take these over-unders and you realize that all of a sudden you have, you don't want to bet
in the first round.
You don't want to bet 40 unders because that won't work. Unless you have unless you bet under 42 and then you get over 28, it's just tough to pull off. Just
speaking to that point, I think the fact that at this point we normally have the same 35 or so names in every mock draft, but at some point during the pre-draft process, like in February, maybe even right after the combine in early March, people joke around that, oh my God, there's 50 first rounders. There's a bunch of names that get thrown in, like Calvin Austin from Memphis had a good combine and a good Senior Bowl. And everyone said, oh, he's a first rounder now. every year we always get to round 2 and everyone always says there's so much amazing talent left. The real value in this draft, the luxury picks are all going to be on day 2, when that's not necessarily always the case. It's just at some point during the pre-draft process, everyone wanted to pencil in. They were saying, hey, he's a first rounder, he's a first rounder, he's a first rounder. And you look and you've written down 45 first rounders when there's only 32 picks.
Sure. I mean, and look, in this draft particularly, I think you want to be a little bit careful about taking too many guys unless you have so if you got Quay Walker at 40 and a half, like that's a different ballgame, right? Because he can, and he's not going to follow the first round, but if he did, you have a couple, you have 8 draft slots after the first round where you can get him in there.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any more chat questions, or do we want to, should I cover my insane amount of, I almost called him Arnold Hutchinson. I just call him Hutch. Like anything with like H and 5 letters right now on my phone autocorrects to Hutch. So Hutch, Aiden Hutchinson. It's just Hutch in my head. I couldn't get past it. I have so for my number 1 overall picks, I have bet Neal at a terrible number, but I was just kind of cover it. I got Icky at a 2. I have some Icky at 30-1. So it's like kind of a weird spot where I've been telling everybody that Trayvon Walker's going to go 1, but I would like make more money if Icky went 1. So it's like a weird thing. And Icky at plus 425. I have some Hutch at 3-1 and 4-1 to go first overall. And so a ton of Trayvon Walker at 3.5-1 to go first overall. That was based on what I was hearing. We've talked about this. Like I heard what I heard, and I was like, I got Trayvon Walker. So when I got the Trayvon Walker, I bet a ton of over Aiden Hutchinson over 1.5. So it's sort of like a double dip. But I've also now bet Hutch plus 360 to go second, and Walker now minus 550 to be the first overall pick. It does feel like a bit of a fait accompli, right? At this point, I mean, it was also noted that I can't remember where I saw it, but it was like the NFL contacted the Jaguars this week and reminded them not to tip any picks. And you sort of wonder, did all the leaks coming out of Jacksonville over the last 2 days about maybe changing the pick, was it even like, hey, look, that Urban Meyer investigation that we were probably going to launch at some point in the near future? We'd be less inclined to launch that if you can help us drum up some interest in this really boring draft that's going to happen. Because last year you guys sort of screwed the pooch. Everyone knew you were taking Trevor Lawrence. Not really your fault. But why don't we stir the old pot a little bit? Act like Shad Khan's coming in there and messing things up and maybe changing the pick. Any truth to that insane rumor, Breech?
If this was any other team besides Jacksonville, that's what makes it so believable. That would be believable. But Jacksonville is all about chaos. There's infighting. I'm sure Shad Khan probably like on his cell phone right now. Look, you know what? I'm having second thoughts. I don't want Walker. We're taking Hutchinson. And then they start all over at square one with their infighting because Doug Peterson, Khan, and Balky all want a different player with the number 1 overall pick. It really is. I will say, though, I mean, besides this Walker stuff just happened in the past 5 days, so they've kept the drama going for quite a while.
It was dead. It was like, all right, like 2 days before the draft, I was like, all right, like I nailed it. I got Walker, put my feet up, feeling good about it. And then it was like Shad Khan has entered the chat. And like Shad Khan was threatening to like go Hutch and, blow up everything. And, it felt like, I was like, oh my God. And now it feels like the Walker stuff is really settled in and that's where they're going. But over the last 48 hours or so, there's been a lot of drama and a lot of concern about which direction it would end up going. So yeah, I don't know if the NFL caused that or if there was actually dysfunction within the Jaguars. But I mean,
if you're Jacksonville though, and everybody views you as dysfunctional, you don't want to put out fake reports that like
unless you get rid of this investigation.
yeah, I guess if the NFL dangled something in front of them, but I mean, it's ridiculous. Maybe Jacksonville shouldn't be allowed to have the first pick anymore.
The idea that this team could, Josh, that this team could like have it's like, all right, we're set on our guy. And then the owner comes in and is like, actually, we're going to go we might take the other guy that you hate, who was coached by your arch nemesis, who has the tiny arms that you can't stand. What do you think, Josh? Real, fake, or just like this? Is this conspiracy have legs, or the Jaguars just a bunch of idiots?
I think it's probably just conspiracy. I don't think it's ultimately going to play out that way, although it would not be the first time that an owner has joined the chat late in the draft process and overruled the people that he has empowered to scout and make those decisions.
In fact, I think you could argue that maybe what happens at number 2 here is that Brad Holmes has had his heart set on even Kayvon Thibodeau for quite some time. We go look at these odds for this. Ooh,
is he the odds-on favorite to be the second pick now?
No, Hutch is still the favorite.
Still Hutch, yeah.
But I wonder, Hutch is minus 200. Tibbs is plus 150. There's then this weird reverse steam on number 2 and on number 3 over the last few hours, where Thibodeau and Stingley have both, Thibodeau to 2 and Stingley to 3, have been getting absolutely blitzed in the markets. Like Thibodeau's down to plus 150. He was plus 300 yesterday. Stingley is the favorite to go. See if you can bring out number 3 as well, Devo. Stingley's the clear-cut favorite to go 3, I think, at this point. But at the same time, Thibodeau's over-under, his over's been getting hit, and Stingley's over's been getting hit. So I don't know if that's like people trying to arb this spot where, because you're getting plus numbers on both. I don't know. It's weird. Like, how are we feeling about number 2? I think my preference is Hutch goes 4th or 5th for financial reasons.
I can't imagine what kind of blowback the Lions will get if they take Thibodeau over Hutchinson and Hutchinson ends up being a better player. They'll never hear the end of it. It's just,
I don't think the blowback will even like wait that long to happen. It's going to be, everybody's going to give them like a C+ in their draft grade. It's like, you had Hutchinson sitting right there. You could have taken the better pass, the equally pass rusher. He's from Michigan, and you didn't take him, the local kid, high character guy, and Thibodeau has all these concerns. And then like they're going to get ripped on Thursday night. They're going to get ripped at the press conference on Friday. And you have to wonder, like, does that matter to ownership, who might be willing to step in and say, no, we're taking Hutchinson 2nd overall and not Thibodeau?
Well, we said earlier, Will, that we both think that we need to consider that everyone needs to consider the presence of Penei Sewell, and that he could be the ultimate insider in terms of Kayvon Thibodeau's character, his demeanor, how hard he works, and just he can literally say, like, I used to block Kayvon Thibodeau at practice, and he's going to be trash, or he's going to be really, really good because I had problems blocking him. That's just the one thing why I think this has moved up a little bit. But yeah, I think where Hutchinson is, he'll still probably be the number 2 overall pick. But I'm not thinking this is written in stone anywhere close at this point, because almost solely of the presence of Penei Sewell on that roster.
Josh, I've had people text me that Tibbs is a lock and Hutchinson is a lock, at least, or like chat about it at least like 7 times in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, and that tells you that nobody knows is exactly what that boils down to. So it would not be a surprise to see either one of these two go number 2 overall. I do think the arguments that they're going to take Aiden Hutchinson because he's, attended Michigan probably does not carry water. I also think that the Penei Sewell thing is probably overblown at this point. It's made out to be like he is the one that is going to make the choice for the Lions. And while his input might be valued, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to be what they determine is in the best interest of the franchise moving forward. And either way, it looks like it's going to be one of these 2 edge rushers that you pair with Romeo Okwara, and then you get very excited about what they can do on that side of the ball with that pairing.
I have one question about the number 1 overall pick, just jumping back to that quickly. How and why did the Travon Walker hype train take off like 5 days ago? Like, if Trent Baalke, like, was it Will searching that San Francisco Chronicle blog where Trent Baalke said, I love long arms, and he tweeted that out and that moved the market? Because it felt like usually in the past when someone of Travon Walker's size and pedigree has a great combine, it's like, boom, right after the combine, he becomes, or within a few days after, becomes like the number 1 overall pick favorite, it was still, nope, it's going to be Hutchinson. I was on a Houston radio show with Lance Zierlein like 2 weeks ago, and he's like, yeah, I think Travon Walker could go number 3 overall. Like, he could go that high. And then suddenly it wasn't Shad Khan enters the chat and he wants Travon Walker. Like, I guess it doesn't matter, but I'm just wondering, like, how and why did this come out just now? Like, in the last 72 hours.
Well,
It happened on Sunday night.
Right. And I would say that it's very possible that Jacksonville wasn't settled on their pick if they were truly trying to decide between 3 different players. And then maybe Friday night, because I don't think they made the decision today or yesterday. You got the number 1 overall pick. You're making your decision a few days in advance. And it feels like they just genuinely had not decided. And then as soon as they did, it was leaked out.
Gotcha.
I mean, I don't want to take credit for the move.
I think it's Will's searching and finding that 2014. Was it 2014 blog that you found?
Yeah. All right. So on what happened was, I mean, look, again, I could be wrong.
This is Brinson generated.
No. Here's what happened. Here's what happened on Sunday. So, like, I had heard several weeks before that Hutch was the guy, but like to keep an eye on Travon Walker. He's like 20-1, 30-1. I didn't say anything to anybody because I was like, didn't have 20-1, 30-1 available, and I was like going to wait for it and try to bet it. And it never popped up. And then when it did, and Breech has put in the Slack chat, like, Schrags on April 11th, Peter Schrager mentioned it too. And that's what happened was that this is when the buzz started to leak out about Travon Walker going 1. And that's when his odds shrank.
That is when it came out. Yeah. But it's late.
I'd already heard to keep an eye out for him from the same person who eventually told me that he was the guy. Then on Sunday night, I will say that in like 2 different chat groups that I was in, I mentioned that it was a good time to bet Travon Walker 1 because Peter King's first mock draft was coming out the next day. And, if Walker was 1 in that mock draft, the market was going to move dramatically. Well, and my prediction was he was going to be like minus 150 by noon. And that's exactly what he was. And so basically what happened is I think a ton of money got on Travon Walker at 3-1, at plus 150, at plus 170, anything at plus money. And when you couple that with the Peter King mock, and the books were just like panic pulling it and moving as fast as they can, because again, we always talk about these are always reactionary. The odds are already reactionary. And so Victor in the chat says Pete Prisco told me no. Pete has had 0 Jaguars information. It's been very surprising. If he's watching, sorry, Pete, it's true. Usually Pete's on the Jags. But basically, like, I think that combination of like the market being flooded and then that mock draft caused, because it was sort of like, all right, this is the last chance to get Travon Walker at plus money. We need to get him now. And so I think that caused the big shift in the odds. And then you sort of heard, we started talking about the long arm stuff, and it was like, then like people, you make the Jim Harbaugh, Trip Baalke connection. It's like, is Baalke really going to draft a short arm guy, who doesn't fit his profile that it was coached by Jim Harbaugh and give Michigan a ton of press at 1? I don't think so. But people were too hesitant because there were still like Daniel Jeremiah's out there. Like, look, Aiden Hutchinson is my number 1 player. I can't believe this. Most of the draft nicks are like, Aiden Hutchinson is my best player. I can't believe that this is happening. And so I think that was the hesitancy to push it all the way up. And that's why it was still minus 150, minus 170, minus 200 for a while. And now here you get to, draft day, it's minus 550. And like, honestly, you could lay the minus 550 if you have the liquidity right now, because it does feel like it's that certain. It's very hard to wrap your brain around the idea of doing that. Breech, you might be better at this than me because you love betting those big favorites, but like, a buddy of mine has pointed out that with these draft bets, you're not talking about like the Suns versus the Pelicans money line, right?
Right.
There's no, if you feel confident that something has happened, the odds should actually be infinity. Right. There's no like minus amount that you should be afraid to lay, because we know that Travon Walker is going to be the number 1 overall pick. But it's like, at least in this draft, it's like,
well, right. Unless you hear it from Jacksonville themselves, though, you're only 99.9% sure.
Right.
So like,
A better example is last year. If Trevor Lawrence was minus 10,000,
Right.
like those odds were not correct.
But if you want a free dollar, you just bet $100 to win that dollar because you knew you weren't going to lose. And so I do feel like it's just about risk assessment. Are you willing for that 0.1% chance? Are you willing to put $55 down to win $10 if at negative 550? Are you willing to take that $55 bet and show up with Hutchinson on the card?
So I did a Twitter Spaces thing with Nick Kostos and Sam Pantanovich earlier this week. And Sam was like, what % chance do you, and I was explaining just sort of my thoughts on Trayvon. He was like, what % chance do you think it is that Trayvon goes 1? I was like, 90%. He's like, well, I mean, if you really think it's 90%, then you should absolutely lay minus 230, because minus 230 implies a lot lower than 90%. And so that's sort of the calculus you have to do. It's just, if you know, like for instance, number 2, I would need to see, and the odds are going to go away once the draft starts, right? I would assume so. But like, I would need to see, like, if we get a tweet from Adam Schefter, it's like, the Lions are increasingly focused on Oregon pass rusher Kayvon Thibodeau at number 2, and Thibodeau is like minus 300. Lay it, lay it, because you know what's coming down the pipe. All right, chat questions. Sorry, I don't know if that was a lengthy rant. Did that make sense? Did I sound?
Yeah, I just wondered how it kind of happened so late, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was a what?
I didn't know he was getting a 20-minute answer from his question.
I'm like,
where the Trayvon Walker stuff come from?
It's like, it would be really hard to explain in extreme detail and make me sound like a crazy person.
Well, so, and the one thing I think would be fascinating, if the next time there's a behind-the-scenes draft thing, if somebody's embedded with a team, I would love to know the time the team made the decision. It doesn't have to be pick 1, pick 2, pick 3, and then at what point the gambling market changes because word got out, because obviously 2 weeks ago, Jacksonville probably didn't know who they were taking, but at some point, whether it was 5 days ago, whether it was 10 days ago, they said, all right, we're taking Trayvon Walker. And then eventually it went from him like plus 700, whatever it was 2 weeks ago, down to what he is now, which is minus 550. So did it happen after they made their decision? Did it happen when he was on the table as a possibility? It's just, it would be very fascinating to try and do research like that, but I don't know if teams would reveal when they actually made their decision.
Mm-hmm. Trying to see the our buddy Josh Norris. I mentioned that Josh. Oh, sorry. Let's get to this. We'll get to this Jordan Davis question. Did anyone bet Jordan Davis number 8 to Atlanta? Hi, Mom. I mocked him 8 to Atlanta. Yeah, of course I did. 14-1. I thought after I did my mock, I was like, I'm going to get on here and it's going to be like 75-1 Jordan Davis to Atlanta, because nobody has Jordan Davis going to Atlanta. Like, has anybody seen that anywhere else? It was like 14-1. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It feels low for a thing that just hasn't been connected at all. And the thing about these markets too is that they move like crazy. Is it insane, Josh, to suggest that Jordan Davis could go 8th overall to Atlanta? And I obviously go to Josh because I know that he's going to say. He's going to say what I want to hear.
you chose an ally there for sure. No, because I think Jordan Davis is an anomaly. I mean, when you look at his size, his athletic traits, we just haven't seen a defensive tackle like him. And when you look at the NFL and what they have traditionally valued, you're looking at those traitsy players that they can translate to the NFL. The ones that offer the high ceiling that you're looking for when making a top 10 pick. So that's why I keep being drawn back to Davis as a top 10 pick, because he's unlike anybody else in this class. I mean, pound for pound, he's probably the best athlete. So I could see a team valuing that in the first round, even if it's not the most popular projection.
Well. We got another member. Emory Hunt has entered the chat. Emory, what's up, buddy? How we doing?
What's up, guys? How you guys doing?
Good, man. Got the 5 running 5 wide here. Full.
I've never seen the 5 box in action.
I know. We were just talking about Jordan Davis going to the top 10, maybe even 8 to Atlanta. You think that's a crazy idea, or does that make any sense? How high do you think Jordan Davis could go?
I'm thinking 17, maybe, if the Chargers stay there, but if he's going top 10, you better have a plan for him.
Yeah,
and you kind of, you hope a lot of these coaches tend to, oh, we're going to use him like this. And they get the guy, and it's like, what do we do with him? Like,
That's true.
don't you have a plan? So hopefully they have a plan if he's going that high. And if he does, you kind of want to give him a little credit. Okay, maybe they do have a plan, but that plan better work week one. We better see week one of the preseason Jordan Davis doing something otherworldly, otherwise to be upset.
I would guess that like 89% of mock drafts out there have him 14th overall to the Baltimore Ravens. Like that's like every single mock draft has it. There was some buzz out there. I know it was like Pro Football Network, but I don't know who said it, whether it was like Aaron Wilson or Tony Pauline or something, but they were like, the Chargers really want Jordan Davis. He makes sense because they struggled against the run, but they think they have to trade up to 11 or 12 to get him.
Yikes. I just feel like, with these mock drafts, we do a lot of them. So people tend to take it as, oh, this is going to happen as fact. But, it just makes too much sense for the Chargers to take him because, like you mentioned, they really couldn't stop the run last year. But we've seen mock drafts just not make sense, even though they make complete sense. Like the Eagles taking a linebacker, it makes complete sense. The Saints taking a wide receiver that has speed, it makes complete sense. But until we see it happen, it may not work out for him.
Traps, your thoughts on Jordan Davis going that high?
I think there's an outside chance of it, but I'm a little bit more siding with Emory that it feels like he'll be picked somewhere in the teens. But what Josh laid out about his athleticism and those traitsy type players usually are picked really high. To advocate for Josh's idea, or I guess just the question in this chat, Derrick Brown was a top 10 pick, 2 years ago, and he did not test anywhere close to Jordan Davis, and he was that kind of overwhelming nose tackle. I think he was a little bit actually better of a football player than Jordan Davis, but I remember not liking that pick when the Panthers picked him inside the top 10 because his combine was so disappointing, and obviously Jordan Davis's workout in Indianapolis was out of this world. So if it happens, it'll be, I think, more so about his workout than what he showed as a pass rusher at Georgia.
Yeah, I'm not saying I would do it. I'm just saying when you look at the NFL and what they have historically valued, those types of athletes are under more consideration than maybe what we are outwardly projecting.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's like if we were in a draft class where we don't think there are any we don't think there's a lot of difference makers. There's not a bunch of elite level talent. Like I'm going to gamble on the traitsy guys, like a Jameson Williams, who's got incredible speed, or a Jordan Davis, or a Trayvon Walker, or Kayvon Thibodeau. Like give me the guys. Like I don't want to settle in a draft that doesn't have, because it's not like you're settling for Penei Sewell. Or like previously people were like, oh, like Joey Bosa might have hit his ceiling already. Like I mean, again, it's ridiculous comments, but like. I don't know. Give me the guys. Give me the freak of nature. Like I want the freaky freaks on my team. Which don't clip and save that, please. All right, let me ask you. Oh, here we go. Liam Russell asked, who will be a shock player to miss the first round? This is a good question, and there's probably some decent candidates here, Emory.
Yeah, I would lay my money on Kenny Pickett. I feel like one of these quarterbacks are not going to go in the first round. And I feel like the NFL teams will show a little bit more restraint as news comes out that Daniel Jones, his 5th-year contract option is not being picked up. Why would he have gone 6th overall anyway? So maybe these teams are learning from their past mistakes. So I feel like we'll see someone like Kenny Pickett fall out. I feel like Lewis Seen, I heard you guys talk about him earlier. He may be one that even though he's gotten some first round traction, may not be more of a first round pick. I thought Josh brought up a great point, how we tend to view it in terms of the mock draft, but the draft is bigger than 32 players, so the league has a broader scope of these prospects. So I feel like you said, this is a good option for a lot of players, but I feel like one of these quarterbacks is not going in the first round.
Oh, I feel like it might be more than one. These quarterbacks.
Well, I mean, only one will go. I feel like
right. Yeah. That's entirely possible. Breech, you got a surprise player who might fall out of the first round?
Well, that was my bold prediction. I've been saying all week is there's only going to be one quarterback draft in the first round, so all of them are going to fall out except for the one who gets drafted.
Good answer.
Maybe it's Malik Willis. Maybe it's I think Pickett and Willis would only be the only two surprises, really. I think the other guys, they might go in the first round, but I don't think it would be too shocking if any of them fell out. I know we talked about Desmond.
Malik Willis falling in the first round would be a pretty big shock.
Right. And so I think that, if Desmond Ritter's not drafted, that's not a huge surprise if he falls out of the first round. So I'll say Willis. I'll say he is the big surprise, even though I think a team, if he got down into the 30s, 30, 31, 32, that someone would trade up. That's kind of what I was talking about with the Lamar Jackson comparison, where you're unsure if you want to take him in the mid-teens or the high 20s, but if he falls back, then you're like, oh, we're getting that guy because we can make him work. And that's what I think would happen with Willis. But I do think we're only going to see one quarterback taken the first round.
Josh, who you got?
I touched on it earlier. I think Washington cornerback Trent McDuffie is one of them because of the arm length. Similar argument that I made for Jordan Davis or Quay Walker being under first round consideration. The counterpoint is that maybe McDuffie is not as high on other teams' boards as it is projected in the media. I will also say that I've had trouble mocking linebackers in the second half of the first round, specifically Georgia's Nakobe Dean. I love him as a player. He's a top 20 player for me, but when you look at what the NFL values, I could see a lot of them having issues with his lack of height.
Traps.
And I'll go with one that would be, I guess, maybe the biggest shock of them all. Tyler Linderbaum. Like Josh is saying that it's hard to mock or find positions to mock linebackers to in the back half of the first round. If Breech was saying earlier that he doesn't really think that the Bengals would pick Linderbaum at 31, those teams in the 20s we mentioned, like the Packers and the Chiefs, obviously need wide receiver, other positions, edge rusher, secondary. If you're Kansas City, a lot of those teams already have their centers in place. You could make an argument that, the arm length deficiency could be a little bit of a red flag for Linderbaum for some teams. So most mock drafts, I have Linderbaum in the first round. I think in my last one, I still had him. But if he was like one of the first selections in round 2, that wouldn't shock me, especially after having so much buzz as like this generational center prospect. The fact that he does have shorter arms, was under 300 pounds at the combine. The tape is good. He's very good as a screen blocker and as a run blocker. I think there are some deficiencies in his pass protection. He would be the one that would be really seen as a gigantic shock that I could envision, because it's just hard to find a team that really needs a plug-and-play center in the back half of the first round.
Fair enough. Okay, so I got some cornerback bets here that I'm hoping pay off pretty good. Stingley, I got a Stingley under 12.5. I feel like that I'm in good shape with that one, right? I got that one a while ago.
Spend that money, man. That's yours.
You can't bet that anymore. If I lose, that's one where it's
what were the odds on that when you bet it?
Minus 130 or something.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's from a while back. I mean, there were not as many this year as there were last year, where it was like Jamar Chase under 7.5. Okay, wow. Right, sure, pal. So it was like I got Stingley under 12.5. I also have Stingley to go third at 6-1 and 3-1, and Stingley to go sixth at 50-1. That's banking, and I have Jameson Williams go sixth at 50-1 as well. That's banking on the Panthers trading out and somebody coming up. If the Panthers trade out, who do we think is a likely? And I think I think the Panthers are off the quarterback train at 6 at this point. They realize that, one, Kenny Pickett may not be better next year than Sam Darnold. 2, Malik Willis may not be ready to go next year. I mean, now you can make the argument that he could play and that the offense is better than people think. And then 3, that you're going to get absolutely blistered if you take a quarterback at 6 and it doesn't work out and people are getting fired. So I think they're going to go either take an offensive lineman or trade down. Emory, when you I guess let's assume Walker, Hutch, one of the cornerbacks, and another edge rusher and an offensive lineman. Does that seem like Icky and who else is off the board? I'm trying to give it a sense. Let's say Evan Neal is there, but Icky's not. Evan Neal and Charles Cross are there at 6. Do you think the Panthers are more likely to trade out of that spot and or draft the offensive lineman? And if they trade out, is there anybody you think that might make sense to come up to 6?
That's a great question. I feel like if you're Carolina, and that situation, a scenario plays out, you get on the phone with the Jets and you figure out who they want to take at 10. Let's say there's a couple of receiver options available, and the Jets go corner at pick 4 or whatnot, right? Or pass rusher, and they want a receiver. And one of these top receivers are there. But the problem is, you have the Giants sitting there at 7, and let's say they don't go O tackle. Let's say the Giants go corner or edge rusher, first, and the Jets go corner, edge rusher, and they both looking at O tackle. Giants would definitely look at tackle, and the Jets would probably want either a lineman or a receiver, but they would probably want a receiver. I think you can go back to 10 and still get your guy. The Seahawks may be in line for an offensive lineman or corner, but I feel like you could be safe at pick 10 if you swap with the Jets. Otherwise, you stay there and you take one of these outstanding tackles. Christensen, who can play guard or tackle, gives you some flexibility there. So therefore, you can take that tackle and really bolster your offensive front that way.
Yeah, I love that idea. And I actually had that happening in my mock draft. Now I'm sort of wish casting because I had the Jets trade up and draft JMO at 6. And that way I hit my thing, and then the Panthers can move back. And I think maybe I had actually Evan Neal falling to 10. I don't know that it happens, but I do think that 6 to 10 move where you can maybe pick up a second or a third makes a lot of sense. Breech, you're someone who likes to dabble in the mystical arts of page view churning and or whatever you would call it. Like you like the idea of mock trades. What who could you see the Panthers trading out of at 6? Do you have a wild trade out there that you sort of concocted in that insane mind of yours?
What if the Panthers, there's just no superstar in the draft? That's the problem, where you're saying you have a team back there that wants to move up, because no one wants to move up from the middle of the first round to grab a quarterback in this draft because those guys aren't good enough. I don't know. I don't know that there'd be one involving the Panthers. I could see the Chiefs or the Packers if they really have their heart set on one of these receivers, whether that's JMO, whoever it is, whoever, Garrett Wilson, whoever it is. I could see one of those two teams saying, you know what, we're going to go get that guy. Especially the Chiefs. We know Andy Reid, if you really like someone, we saw them do it with Patrick Mahomes, trading up to 10 from the lower 20s when they drafted Mahomes. So if Andy Reid likes a guy, he'll throw his 2 first-round picks and whatever it takes to get up to 14, get up 12, get up to 10 to get a receiver he wants. So I would say if we see a trade tonight that involves a team moving up more than, say, 5 spots, I would have the Chiefs or Packers as my top candidates. But then you also have all those teams that don't have first-round picks, and there's 8 of them. So it wouldn't be surprising to see one of those 8 try to trade up in the first round.
Anything kooky you got there, Traps, as far as a trade for the number 6 goes? Because, again, I really think Scott Fitterer is desperate to trade out of there. I wouldn't be surprised if he traded down twice, unless they just fell in love with Icky or fell in love with Neal and believe he could be the solution with Darnold back there or Jimmy G.
Not anything kooky in my head, but what to me seems like the most likely would be, with them sitting there at 6 and kind of what feels like the most plausible scenario, a team will trade up for the other corner that's not available, whether Sauce goes at 4 or Stingley goes at 3. If Sauce is sitting there at 6, if Stingley's sitting there at 6, I could see a team trying to trade up to get one of them. And then we'll probably have at least one of the premier offensive tackles still available. So whether that be the Jets, whether that be the Houston Texans, to try to get back into the top 10 after picking at 3. Maybe they pick Stingley at 3 and then they want their tackle and they don't want to run the risk of missing out on that premier guy. Those 2 positions, corner, offensive tackle, seem the most likely for teams just outside the top 10, maybe the Jets at 10, to move up to that 6th spot to get a player. And one guy we haven't talked about enough that was getting buzz like yesterday, which kind of feels like old news, is Jermaine Johnson. Like, there could be a team like the Jets that picks Derek Stingley or picks Sauce Gardner or their offensive tackle at 4 that says, hey, we really love Jermaine Johnson. Apparently he's viewed higher even by the NFL than most of the media. That could be the player that they don't want to see a team at 10, 11, 12, 13, whatever the case may be, have to see Jermaine Johnson get past the Falcons at 8 and the Giants at 7, the Seahawks at 9, and they would move up to make Jermaine Johnson the 3rd edge rusher off the board.
I'm going to flip the script and pose a question to each of you because it stems from this exact question. What do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to do? Are they in the mix for a quarterback? Do they actually like Malik Willis, or have the past 2 months been a smokescreen? Do you think they would take a quarterback, stay put at 20 and take a quarterback? Are they going to trade up? Are they not going to take a quarterback? Like, what's your feel on what the Steelers are going to do in the first round?
You know what's interesting about that? I feel like it almost seems as if Pittsburgh put it out there purposely that they are in the market for player X, which, if you're trying to read the tea leaves, it's like, that can't be true, right? Because it's too obvious. But we just saw them last year nail 2 players that we said, oh, they're going to Pittsburgh easily. Freiermuth and Najee Harris.
I know. They kind of hang it out there, man. Like, they really don't try to hide it.
Devin Bush 2 years ago.
Right, exactly. And so you don't really – it's tough to figure out Pittsburgh. They may be telling the truth in plain sight, but we don't know. One scenario that seems plausible, but I don't think it works because it's in the division. It's clear-cut that the Saints need a tackle. And the best pass pro guy is Cross. If Cross is there, if you're Carolina, do you take those 2 first-round picks from New Orleans so they can go get Cross, and then do you part ways with one of those first-round picks to get a bunch of second or third-round picks that you don't have right now? So they like to what Will said earlier, they may try to move down twice. I think that's an option, but I don't want to make my division rival better. But to answer your question, Josh, it's hard to know what Pittsburgh is doing because they've told us the truth multiple times, and we steadily don't believe it. I keep
falling for it though. Like, I keep not giving the people that they're making clear they want to take. I'm like, well, they're obviously not going to take Najee Harris in the first round. Like, and
it fell to them exactly. They didn't have to trade up or nothing.
And it's like, you can't win your mock draft if you don't have the Steelers taking Najee. Like,
and it's like the Steelers literally were like, you know what? Everybody else is blowing smoke and lying. What if we tell the truth? And everyone will think we're lying, and no one will believe. They've literally been telegraphing us their picks for the past 3 years. And to that point, I do think that they're probably interested in Malik Willis, but I don't think they want to sell the house for him. They don't want to blow the mortgage up. So I have a hard time seeing them trade up, but I think they feel like a team that they're going to think, hey, we'll sit tight at 20. If Willis is there, we can take him. If he's not, we've got a laundry list of needs that we need to fill, and we can take someone else. So there's no reason for them to give up compensation to move up. But if they let the draft fall to them, they'll be happy they'll have multiple players on the board they're ready to take if Willis isn't there.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm of the belief, similar to what Emory said, that if Willis gets within striking distance, like within a couple of selections with the Eagles and Saints there right in front of them with those multiple picks, I feel like that's the type of move that the Steelers would do. Do they want to move up to 6? Do they want to move up to 4, 5? No, not necessarily. That would be a little bit surprising, even though they did trade up a lot to get Devin Bush in that draft a few years ago. I think if what Mike Tomlin said and to what we all just mentioned, that they've been pretty open about their draft intentions. If Willis is sitting there at 14, 15, 16 with some possible teams with the Saints or Eagles maybe saying, oh, wow, like Willis is here, let's just pick him and store him on the bench. I think at that point, the Steelers would make a move. It's not going to cost you very much to move up a couple selections in the middle of the draft to get a quarterback that could be your heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger and completely change around your organization.
All right, two trades I want to throw out there. One, Devo dropped in the Slack chat because it's Eagles related, obviously. But James Palmer of NFL Media reported that it appears nothing has changed. As Rap Sheet said, the Eagles and Howie Roseman have been calling pretty much every team in the top 10 to, quote, make a big move. And the thought is possibly for an edge rusher. So what we've been saying all day, obviously, Howie Roseman, the type of guy who likes to make a move up the draft board, is not afraid to be bold in his trading leading up to the draft. Eagles have 2 first rounders. They could probably, and of course they have 2 first rounders next year. I mean, the problem is, like, I don't know what the Panthers will want to move out of 6. There will be one of those edge rushers. Maybe they could get Jermaine Johnson. Maybe they could get Kayvon Thibodeau if he falls. Maybe they could get Hutchinson if he falls to 6. Ain't out of the question. The other one I would float, and we could talk about these, just we can sort of bounce them around and people could talk about them. Jay Glazer is reporting that the Chiefs are trying to trade up and have been offering next year's 1, but that's looked at as a 2 as well. Yes, Josh, you made a ooh face.
I mean, that suggests a big move. I mean, unless I guess the assumption would be that they are keeping either number 29 or number 30, and then you're packaging the other with that first round pick next year. If that's the case, then I would think you're probably getting up into the middle of the first round. If you're offering all of that, then that's a top 10 move. So I'm curious to see just how aggressive they are going to be and for what position, because everybody associates a wide receiver with them. But I did radio in Kansas City today, and they're saying everybody's blowing this out of proportion. I think cornerback and edge rusher are bigger needs. I think they would go wide receiver, but I'm just playing devil's advocate here as they look to possibly move up the board.
Well, the thing I was kind of saying earlier, though, is if Andy Reid has his eyes on something, and again, we saw him do it with drafting Patrick Mahomes, where they traded up from 26 to 10. And if he thinks there's a receiver out of this group of receivers that can just be a total game changer in his offense, he will absolutely trade up to get that person. And that's why I said if there's going to be a team that trades up 5 or more spots, you think to dump it off for Deebo Samuel?
No, J-Mo.
J-Mo.
Yeah. I don't think he's Tyreek Hill, but like if you're trying to find a replacement for Tyreek Hill, and
absolutely,
and you had enough weapons where you could wait for him to get completely healthy in October and November, like that's the guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if Andy Reid thinks, hey, this is a game changer, and this guy is going to make our offense better, he's going to give up whatever it takes, and that is why we could definitely see the Chiefs trade into the top 10. Might get hard to get, but like you guys just said, if they're giving up all 3 of the picks, they're giving up 29, 30, and next year's first rounder.
The Panthers are sprinting to do that.
Oh yeah. Then you can get into the top 10. So the Chiefs could throw a wrench in the draft.
Yeah. Emory, your thoughts on either the Eagles or the Chiefs? Chiefs would be crazy, but like I think you can get up the board really high. Like you can get from 29 to 6 for way cheaper than you would ever be able to do it in a quote unquote normal draft with like a ton of elite talent at the top.
I feel like Philly maybe focus on, like you said, Thibodeau or one of these corners or Jermaine Johnson, right? Or a wide receiver or whatnot, maybe a Drake London. I feel like they have cornered the market already on these slim, fast receivers. These are big dog. They need someone that's going to strike fear in the hearts. And I feel like, going to Olave or going Garrett Wilson or going, Jameson Williams, you kind of already have that in the Slim Reaper already over there. So I feel like you got to go get a big guy. Otherwise, you go get, the pass rusher or the corner, someone that can take the ball away or get to the quarterback.
Stingley or Sauce could potentially. I know that everybody's sold on Sauce going 4 or 5. Sauce or Stingley could be there at 6, and one of those pass rushers is going to be there at 6, whether it's Hutch, Jermaine Johnson, or Kayvon Thibodeau.
And Sauce looks like he's from Philly too, so it works out perfectly.
How about that necklace?
Exactly, the whole outfit looked like an album cover. I was impressed. Very impressed stylistically. Proficient. If you're Kansas City going up though, we all remember their defense was trash. I'm not sold on them going up to get a receiver. They're going to get someone that can get to the quarterback alongside Chris Jones, or someone that can take the ball away. You lose Tyrann Mathieu. They got rid of Sorensen. They were already, with Sorensen out there, it was already down 7-0 every game. So he's gone. Mathieu is gone. They got to get some. Maybe it's Kyle Hamilton. Who knows?
Sure. There's a picture of Sauce's necklace. If
you just slap the explicit lyrics tag in the left hand corner, tell me that's not an album cover.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a bottle of sauce, and he said it was all-purpose sauce, all diamonds. It's made of complete diamonds, and then the letters or the word sauce with just dripping in sauce. So there's like a multi-layers because you have the
drip.
The drip, as the kids would say. Yes, that's right, Travis. You and I say it, and it sounds very, very cool. The kids are loving it at the moment on the internets. But look, that's a look. I also thought Ike Ekwonu had an incredible look. He was representing Nigeria with the thing over the shoulder and just a absolutely like just a beast of a man.
And he had some drip too. He had the diamonds going with the Icky necklace.
Absolutely. And he is like that guy is as clean like a prospect as it comes, in my opinion. Maybe I'm biased. Who's to say?
You definitely are, but it's also a decent opinion.
All right, let's get a couple more questions from the chat. This is a good one. JJ wants to know over under 4.5 ACC players taken tonight. This is something you can actually bet on. I'm just looking to see what the juice is right now. I see over is juiced and the under is basically even money. So why don't we'll do a draft. Let's see if we can get to 5. I'll go first since you guys are better at the draft than I am. We'll go me, Breech, Traps, Emory, Josh. I will say Ike Ekwonu as the first overall pick. That's the easy one. Breech, you're on the clock with an ACC player for the draft.
Well, I think we'll absolutely see Jermaine Johnson get drafted. 2. We are at 2.
Traps.
How about Andrew Booth from Clemson? I feel like
that's not who I would have taken with the 3rd pick, but that is definitely a possibility.
I'm probably forgetting someone blatant.
I think so. Emory.
I go Zion Johnson.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? For briefly in my head, I was thinking Kyle Hamilton was an ACC player too. He's not. He's not. Now, if they count it, it's a lock. All right. So Booth, Zion. I think Zion's getting in there for sure.
So we need one more.
One more to get the over. Josh.
Possibly Kenny Pickett.
Pickett.
I guess that would be your
liking. What am I missing on this over under? I kind of feel like the under is. Are we missing somebody obvious?
What about Zach Tom? That may be a.
I love Zach.
Ooh, I would love that. Would be great. I would love that as a surprise first round pick.
I just don't understand why the over. Like I think the over assumes Booth and Kenny Pickett. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you're not. If you don't get Booth and Kenny Pickett, if you get Booth and Kenny Pickett, you're getting it. But
you have to get them both.
Right.
That's why it's a gamble.
I think I'm taking.
It's a sneaky one to go in there. Sam Howell.
Okay, but so would you guys take the over here, or would you take the under?
I think I would probably take the under on ACC players, unless I'm just missing somebody.
I think I would take the over because I feel like 4 seems like a lock, and then it's just, are you going to get the 5th one?
Are we missing somebody?
I want to go. You don't want to go through the first 20 players, have 4 ACC players, and then you have to sweat out the last 12 picks, hoping there's none taken.
That's true. You don't want to have to do that.
See, we were just talking about Kyle Hamilton, like I was saying, is he an ACC guy? Probably not. And I mentioned this earlier. No, he's not.
He played in the ACC technically.
He played in the ACC, but the corner or safety bet. Jalen Petrie played 601 snaps in the slot last season, 122 in the box, and 14 deep, like as a deep safety. Daxton Hill, over 500 snaps in the slot, like 130 as a in the box safety, and like 80 as a free safety. So that's why I rank them as corners, because watching their film, I think Emory and Josh could really attest to this, watching a lot of their games. They feel like corners to me. They're not safeties. So I'm sure they'll be counted as safeties. I just kind of wonder why, because they were much more prevalent in the slot as that nickel corner than they were as a more traditional safety.
It's a good point. I would say if you're betting the overs on safeties, and I like the over 1.5 safeties, like up to minus 400. As you wait till you get closer to the draft, and you don't think you're gonna be betting on any baseball that night, and you're okay with some liquidity. Yeah, go ahead, Emory.
What's the number on corners?
1.5, but it's like minus 300 right now.
No, it's 4.5.
4.5.
Yeah.
Corners. Sorry, I meant safeties. Safeties. Yeah.
Corners I'm glad you asked that, because I was telling Brinson before you got on, Emory, that was my biggest prop bet of the night, is the over on corners.
And it's actually plus money over.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, hey man, slap that over quickly. You know who may back into, because you guys talked about traits and all that stuff. And we just off a season where Trayvon Diggs had 20 billion interceptions.
Oh,
you know where I'm going? Tariq Woolen may find himself in the first round. Former wide receiver, high upside, 6'4", 4'2", 40. Back end, Kansas City, if they don't move up, they need corner help. since he could use corner help. I feel like that's someone in the back end that could, sneak in there. Someone that's high upside. He needs development. But if we're talking about ball skills, traits, that's the type of guy that you'll gamble on in the late first round.
Yeah, that's a good one. And that's we've heard so much about. We haven't seen a NFL player like Jordan Davis, 6'7", 350 with that athleticism. What Emory just laid out is spot on, that we have not ever seen a corner with the measurables and the speed of Tariq Woolen from UTSA. So we always see a bunch of those from pick 20 to 32, guys that are routinely mocked in the second and third, even fourth round, sneak into the first. That's a really good one to keep an eye on and kind of remember, stored in the back of your brain. At about midnight tonight, that could be one of the picks.
Did we all last year have Odafe Owe going in the first round?
Maybe.
Peyton Turner, probably not.
Peyton Turner was the Adam Schefter bomb special the day before the draft, where he's like, teams are higher on this guy than people expect. It was like, okay, should I put that?
He said it on Drake Jackson yesterday too. He tweeted something similar.
2 years ago was Isaiah Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere to the Titans. Out of football already.
Out of the football, yeah.
Sam Houston State cornerback Zion McCollum is another one of those tradesy cornerbacks too that probably won't go in the first round, but has the profile of a guy that a team is going to take a chance on early.
That's what I had. My only mock draft on CBS Sports was the Bengals taking Zion McCollum because he's height, weight, speed. Put Christian Watson in crisis mode in that playoff game. Really good player. His brother is good. His brother's probably going to be a 7th round, maybe priority free agent too. Tristan McCollum.
Sean Ryder has a good question in the chat. Need draft drink help? Bourbon or random beer from the fridge?
Bourbon.
Obviously. Yeah.
Bourbon. Uncle Nearest, the dark label one, not the light label one. Dark one. It'll put it right in.
You start with the bourbon because you need to appreciate that. And then once that's gone, then you move to the random beer in the fridge.
Right. Beer before liquor, never sicker. Liquor before beer, never fear. That's right.
Brinson, you went to college.
We always said in the clear at the end of that.
Yeah. Well,
maybe it's just like a Northeastern thing compared to a North Carolina
That's what
thing.
it sounds like.
Thing. Yeah.
And then River Brown, first time finding this channel, but Sauce or Stingley? Caesars has it dead even.
Wow.
So thanks for finding the channel for the first time. To come back off and hit the alert button. We'll go live after the draft. Make sure to smash the like button too if you're in the chat. Look, man, I gotta tell you, if you look at the odds, let me see if I can find it on Caesars really quickly. Getting a bunch of notifications.
Where was Stingley like 2 days ago?
I know, right?
Literally at like plus,
Stingley has gotten
plus 300.
Steamed.
I'll just say it's a good thing he had his pro day, so everybody remembered that he was a good football player.
And then it was late in the process. Yeah.
Stingley is, oh my goodness gracious. What do you think that Derek Stingley is to go 3rd overall to be the 3rd overall? He's the favorite. What do you think he is to go? Don't scroll yet, Devo. We'll see if people can guess.
Tell me it's not negative. Is it negative?
Oh, it's negative.
Negative 125.
Anybody else?
150.
110.
Josh had the boldest answer, so we'll give him the win. Minus 200.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's
Who's
a
second
big
on that?
number.
What are Evan Neal and Iquanu there?
Evan Neal is 12-1, and Icky is 5-1.
Because I feel like if they're not taking Stingley, they're taking an offensive lineman.
I would think so.
I think they're just taking Stingley based on that.
Yeah, I mean, these are very reactionary, and there's just like a lot of people who, like I saw on ESPN, like I said, ESPN Daily. I was flipping through different pregame shows earlier before we started, and like Anita Marks said she had a source that told her Stingley was going 3. And I mean,
everybody got a source, man.
Yeah, it's like literally. I don't want to single anybody out, but it's just like, I mean, I've been told Stingley's going 3 too, but like,
maybe Lovie Smith is viewing Stingley within his defense like a Charles Tillman.
Ooh. Okay. I mean, the Texans have commented on corners. It is very unlikely that Stingley and or Sauce are available to them at at 10 or 13, excuse me, when they
13,
pick.
yeah.
They could trade up potentially, but that's still not a guaranteed at all. So if you want Stingley, you probably have to take him at 3. And I do think there's a case to be made that, and look, Icky would apply here too. At 3, like all right, let's say that all we have to look at with Stingley is his 2019 tape coming into this year. Let's say 2019 for Stingley, just Stingley happened in a vacuum in 2021. He's probably the first overall pick, right?
Yeah. Hey, listen, if all we had to look at was Kyle Hamilton's, football season as opposed to the combine, he'd probably be a top 5 pick too.
That's true. It's stupid stuff happens in draft season, man. And so I just wonder if the Texans don't look at this as, okay, we are a team with 2 first-round picks. We are rebuilding. We can potentially get a truly elite player who now looks like he's healthy. At 3rd overall, he can be a game changer in Lovie Smith's system. And so we're going to take Stingley. Or it's a giant smokescreen to try to force the Giants to trade up to 2 to get Stingley, or, and maybe the Giants and the Jets are smoke screening on Sauce. I don't know. The other thing about the Texans that's interesting, Debo, do we have an ability do we have player to be picked by us? I don't think we have this on Caesars, but I have this on my local, and I've seen this on other sports books.
What is it?
Team to draft Kenny Pickett.
Ooh.
In the last 30 minutes.
Oh.
The Houston Texans have gone from 20-1 to 7.5-1 to draft Kenny Pickett.
Maybe at pick 13?
What's that?
Maybe that's
Pick
the trade up,
13?
Or trade
pick
down.
13.
I thought you were going to say the Titans.
The Texans. Oh, Debo, look at Debo's got everything.
Wow.
Look at that. Texans are 6-1 now to draft Kenny Pickett. They were 20-1 less than an hour ago.
I'm glad we're seeing this because I said this a couple of days ago, here, Brinson. Why are we giving the Texans a free pass with Davis Mills? Like, what is this?
That's a good point.
5.2 yards an attempt. What are we doing? Yes, you need a quarterback, so that's probably why that thing jumped up like that. And that may be pick 13 as opposed to pick number 3. If it's pick number 3, you might as well start the Uncle Nearest right then and just get hammered.
I don't know that people are giving a free pass to the Texans for Davis Mills but you have to give them the benefit of the doubt because look, he played better than Zach Wilson last year. Who's the second overall pick. We're not talking about the Jets being in the market for a quarterback, so it just feels like I don't. I think you're not giving him. If you bring in Kenny Pickett, you're not giving Davis Mills a fair shake. Like if I'm the Texans, I would rather trade for Baker Mayfield than bring in another rookie after just drafting Davis Mills. I'm not saying they don't need a quarterback. I'm saying I'm not going back to the draft for my quarterback when the guy I drafted last year is still TBA on whether he's good or not.
I think that you can make the case that the Texans are getting a pass for the Davis Mills thing because the Texans aren't supposed to be good next year. So it's like, all right, maybe Davis Mills isn't the guy, but they're not going to be good. So might as well try it out and see what happens. Now,
if you love Smith, you sign off on that? Or are you just happy to
no,
take
you're
it
like, I don't trust Davis Mills. I'd like a quarterback. Like anything good, yeah.
See, I feel the same way for the Giants and Daniel
Exactly.
Jones. Like I
Bingo.
get the whole they get a free pass, they get a year. But if I'm Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, the last thing I want to do is see Daniel Jones turn over the ball 40 times next year and go 4-13, and then we have that on our resume going into year 2, and then we better get that Bryce Young or that CJ Stroud and trade up for him and get him. Because if we miss on him, then what are we doing? Like I think teams are a little bit more quicker to try to get that right quarterback. And right when Brian Daboll got hired in New York, it was like, oh, he's going to love Malik Willis because of similar talent, similar college story, college career to Josh Allen. And we haven't heard a peep about that. I wouldn't be shocked if we do see a couple quarterbacks in the first round, if one of them lands with a team like the Texans, maybe not the Giants, but a team that we haven't really penciled in a lot of mock drafts that just says, hey, we need a quarterback. We're not going to wait until next year. We can't have 7 teams waiting for their quarterback next year. It's not that good of a draft class. And even if it is, if there's that much competition, you're not bound to get one of the top 2 guys. So to me, the Giants have seemed obvious all the way through. Like, I wouldn't run it back with Daniel Jones. We know who he is and what type of player he is at this point. And I think Emory makes good points too on Davis Mills with the Texans.
I feel like when people try to play the game of going back next year and get your quarterback next year, you almost have to lose every game, because that's the only way you can get guaranteed the first overall pick. I feel like when you're trying to, tank, so to speak, to get up high enough, what if you get number 2? And what if the team that picks number 1 wants the guy that you thought you were going to be able to get
exactly
the previous year? So it's hard. You really have to lose all your games.
And I don't think head coaches want to do that right away. They don't want to come in and start 2-15.
Brian Flores didn't.
The Bengals out-tanked the Dolphins, and boom, one of them's in the Super Bowl.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, look, we are all we've said all along is this. Oh yeah, I was just got a text from my guy.
Secret source.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Walker is the guy at 1.
Oh wow.
Done
That was
deal.
from Goodell.
Nah, well, it's better than Goodell. It's a better source than Goodell, technically. He says all right. Yeah, it's a good source. I don't know if I didn't tell you guys who it was off the air. It's a good source. He's
So this would be a breach bet where even if it's like minus 700, you just bet the $100.
I'm gonna see what the odds are right now.
yeah, I mean, no, like unload if it's minus 400.
Brent, are you so sure? Are you gonna pay me back? If
I told you who it was, Breech.
No.
If this guy doesn't know, like, what are we doing? This person would not be smoke screened by the Jaguars. Okay, like,
let me find out if you texted with the cons out there on the phone.
I got Trayvon Walker negative 500 right now. Should I do it?
Do it,
yes,
Breech.
yes. I mean, yes, it happens in 20 minutes. Now, the other thing you can do, Breech, look and see what the over for Hutchinson is. It's probably about minus 400 too. Or you could do the over. Well, Icky's over wouldn't work because it's probably 4.5.
I don't. I'm on BetMGM. They don't have a good selection of the player over unders. There is Icky at 4.5.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to do that because he can go 3 or 4 easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, Hutch is over, or like Trayvon Walker's juice to me right now should be minus 5,000.
Right.
So, I mean,
So am I willing to bet
$10,000
$500 to win 100? Is that?
I would. Yeah.
Is Brinson's source impeachable? Should I do it live right now?
Yeah, do it. Do it.
And then yell at Brinson when I lose?
Yeah. Believe me, if you lose, I'm gonna have a lot more problems than like having to pay back your like $250 or whatever it is. Like whatever I gotta split with you to make it up for it. I already got enough problems of that. Like, obviously you should bet it. You should go for it. I'm gonna have a lot more people than just you yelling at me. I promise you that.
Right, we're on a live stream. Right.
Yeah, right. I saw a chat I was into. Like, it was like I thought I'd like sent it to the wrong thing. It was like, quote, Walker is the guy, and I was like, oh no, did I write that? And I was like, oh wait, no, somebody's listening to the stream and heard it. So, this person would know. This person would know at this point.
Peter Prisco.
It's not Pete Prisco.
Trevor Lawrence.
I got text Pete.
I'd be, going back to the Sauce Gardner thing. The only reason why I can see Stingley going over Gardner in some people's eyes, and again, both are tremendous talents, but for me, Stingley has superior ball skills. Like they were flirting with putting him at receiver this year for LSU. That's how great his hands are. So that's a skill in and of itself. You want that on the back end with the way some of these quarterbacks throw the football, especially in that division. You're gonna have at least 20 intercept opportunities just based off the AFC South alone.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is there any chance that like oh my god, what do you think of Stingley and Pickett? Like all of a sudden, how the hell do you grade the Texans draft on Thursday? Like,
I don't even know why they want to move up either. Like that report that they're going to move up from 13. It's like they're positioned right now, especially with the picks next year in 2024 after the Watson trade, like they can rebuild their roster and be pretty good in the next couple seasons. If they unload a couple of those, day 2 picks next year to move from like 13 to 6, it's kind of feels like it's not something you should do this early on in a rebuild. But I think that would speak to our point earlier that in our minds, we think that GMs and head coaches, they'll just be bad for a year. They'll tank. They'll wait. I don't think that's really the case. I think, everything that's come out of Minnesota with their new regime, that they want to have a competitive rebuild and they extended Kirk Cousins again. It shows that a lot of these guys, when they get in these marquee jobs, they don't want to spend a season being well under 500 and have that on their resume. They want to try to win as many football games as they can every single season.
If you're the Texans and you took Stingley or Sauce at 3, and you got a key on the fact that Thibodeau may be slotting, would you then make that move from 13 to 6?
Thibodeau, I would think about, but I wouldn't do it for Jermaine Johnson, given his age and that I'm not super high on him, and the fact that I think the edge rusher group and the corner class are the 2 deepest groups in this entire draft class. And if you're the Texans, that roster's bad. Like, you need a lot of pieces. And Thibodeau's talent, I think, is borderline transcendent for a defense. And pairing him with Jonathan Grenard would be a nice 1-2 punch, young 1-2 punch at the edge rusher spot. If it's Thibodeau, I could see it. Any other player or position after you get that marquee corner in either Sauce Gardner or Derek Stingley, it just would seem a little weird for a team that's so far away from competing at this point.
What do we think about the Giants? We got about 14 more minutes left for draft chatter. All right, so I still see out here a Sauce Gardner under 5.5 minus 150. I mean, is he definitely going 4th or 5th? Because I could see a situation where let's say it's 1 Walker, 2 Tibbs, which is not unrealistic, 3 Stingley, and then the Jets are like, oh, we're taking Hutch at 4, and then the Giants are like, well, let's see, then maybe the Giants could take Sauce, but they also know that the Panthers won't take a corner. So if you love Cross, you take Cross at 5. The Panthers are like, all right, we're either trading out. I don't think maybe somebody trades up for Stingley and you just take, or for Gardner, you just take the L. But then in that case, you can even take Thibodeau or actually the Giants won't take Tibbs. Thibodeau already went. They could take Jermaine Johnson at 7 if they had to, or trade out. Or if the Panthers draft Neal, you just grab Sauce Gardner. So that's my concern about Gardner at over under 5.5, excuse me.
That's
doesn't it kind of feel like, guys, that Sauce Gardner would be that perfect outside number 1 corner in Wink Martindale's system, like that heavy blitz press man scheme? I guess Emory would probably be the best person to ask this schematically, but it just feels like transitioning to that scheme for the Giants that really asks a lot of cornerbacks being on an island. That's, to me, I have Stingley graded higher because I think he can do more. But if you want that on an island cornerback with the size and the length, the hip fluidity, I think that's Sauce Gardner a little bit more so than it is Derek Stingley.
And if you are, by the way, Breech, did you end up betting Walker?
Maybe.
No, did you? Yes or no? Because he just jumped to minus 1,000 on Caesars.
Yes.
You did? Nice. And he jumped to minus 1,000 on Caesars and on Bet Rivers. It is the I guess I'm not the only one with this source, but and look, it's being put out there. We're probably going to see the tweets that come at 7:55 pretty soon. It's like Adam Schefter's like, after wrestling for many days with a tough decision and focusing in on several key prospects, including Michigan's Aiden Hutchinson, the Jacksonville Jaguars appear poised to draft Trayvon Walker first overall. Phrase like that, where it's like, yeah, you can't tweet Jaguars going Walker first anymore because the NFL gets mad because you spoil it.
Are we going to get those NBA style tweets where they're zeroing in on
you mean the Woj?
Yeah, like the Woj bomb.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like the Jaguars have honed in on Trayvon Walker with the number 1 overall pick. It's like, okay, right.
Trayvon Walker was invited to the draft, but he didn't go. He is watching.
Oh, Demas is Shifters off the coverage?
What?
I'm usually an NFL Network guy. All right, we're going to rap sheet tweet then. it's looking, but it's not sources. You don't say sources. You say like it's looking increasingly likely.
Well, I mean, if Schefter's, he breaks news, that's his job. And if
his son's
the
graduating
NFL is
from college.
cracking down on that a ton.
His son is graduating from college per motion.
Okay. But also the NFL does not want anyone tipping picks this year.
Or any of the last. Hey, there's a good story that I probably can't tell on here, but let's just say that hypothetically, if we might know two people who were in Radio City Music Hall like back in the day, like 2012, and like sending out picks, and all of a sudden, shadowy figure in a suit came strolling up and tapped him on the shoulder and was like, "Come with us." I was like, "Oh boy!"
And we've never seen him again.
Here's a slack from our boss. If Walker isn't number 1, my kids aren't going to college because of Brinson. Fun. They probably weren't smart enough to get it anyway. Okay, it's fine. We'll find out if he's listening to the live stream. Anyway. So yeah, 4. Will equal us up to 13.5. 4 and 5. How do we sort of see the Jets Giants kind of thing playing out there? Emory, which way do you expect to go?
It's definitely possible your scenario can end up with Sauce at 7, especially if Hutchinson is there. If the Jets have to choose between pass rusher or corner, they're going to go pass rusher because they have I'm not saying he's as good as Guy, but they do have 2 young corners that have played solid ball. So they can go pass rusher. They need someone that's a legit dog off the edge. That's more plausible than going corner when now you have to force out one of your young corners that has played well in Hall. So I can see Hutch going 4, Giants taking, someone, maybe Sauce at 5, Panther, because you want to take the corner at 5 because the 6th spot is where someone could trade up and take the corner away from you. And then 7, you take someone else. So it's definitely flirt. I would stay away from that one to put it on. I'll stay away from the guard one now that we're talking through it.
Yeah.
One question I think
it leaves you with little room for error if the edge rushers go 1-2, Stingley goes number 3, and then you're kind of putting your back against the wall with Sauce having to go in those next 2 picks.
Yeah. One question I have: do we think that there's like any surprise position that could go in the top 10? Like we've been throwing on every scenario known to man here with the offensive tackles, the 2 corners, and the edge rushers. Like I know Bruce Feldman a couple weeks ago said like Devin Lloyd's going to go in the top 10. Is there any player, Emory, Josh, John, whatever, that you guys think that could be that crashing of the party in terms of positions where it's not just offensive tackle, edge rusher, corners, and maybe a quarterback?
Defensive tackle.
Jordan Davis at 8. Yep, we've talked about that.
Number 8 for the Falcons, maybe, Brinson? Jordan Davis?
Specifically, yes.
I mean, if we get J-Mo or Stingley 6 and Jordan Davis 8, it's like, I'll do the freaking post pod shirtless. And pants.
We don't need to go that far. We don't need to go that far. I think we'd probably all agree that if a quarterback won the top 10 at this point, that would be a shocker.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is cool. This is cool. Scott Abercrombie in the chat. Scottish fan here. About to watch my first draft. How long does it typically take per pick? Kicks off at 1 a.m. here. I would like to stay awake to the Giants second at 7 at least.
Tell them call off work tomorrow, man. Like you ain't going to work tomorrow, man.
But to get to 7, Scott, you better hope that Joe Shane doesn't trade down.
I would say you're probably looking at 2 a.m. out there in Scotland.
Yeah, and people are asking in the chat if we're streaming through the first round. We are not. We will actually be wrapping up in the next 3 to 4 minutes. It's a long story, but
Prince will tell it one day on a future podcast.
Yeah.
I was at a Bills draft party in 2017 when the Bills had the 10th pick. 25 guys there. They trade back, and now they're picking 27th. And literally, like 3/4 of the party just got up, finished their beers, and left. And it was like me and 4 other guys there. So that could happen to Scott if the Giants trade back.
My whole entire life was draft party being over within 20 minutes because the Bengals are always picking in the top 5. And now I got to wait till 31. This is how do you deal with this drama? I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
There are
2
rants that I go on.
God.
two rants that I go on every single year. Teams that win their tournaments in NCAA basketball should not be playing in play-in games. And the second is teams with the number 1 overall pick should not be taking every minute that they have available on the clock. I mean, you know who you're picking. We don't care to see your logo in the background for the duration of your time. So we got things to do. Let's move it on.
And let's just so you know, the report out there earlier was that the Jaguars do plan to take every single second of the first overall pick.
I know.
So, big FUs to Jacksonville and to the NFL for that.
If they take the whole time, they should start the season 0-2.
I mean, they did it with Trevor Lawrence last year. So
I know.
So dumb.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions in the chat? Anything else we need to get to?
That's 2 hours. My God. That
About 6 more to go.
Usually hanging out with Brinson, it goes slow, but man, that went flew.
It does. These pregame shows usually go pretty fast. All right. We'll get out of here really quickly on this. What is, we got it. By the way, we have a post-draft show tonight. We'll be live after the draft. You can subscribe to the Pick Six Podcast YouTube channel, turn on alerts, and you'll be notified like 30 minutes before we go live. We'll break down the whole first round. We have a pre-draft show tomorrow at 6 p.m. and of course a post-draft show. And if you subscribe to the channel, will Wilson be on our post-draft? I don't think he will be. Will he? I don't think so, right? Wilson's doing his own thing. He's not on there. No, Wilson's on HQ with Prisco in Vegas. They're playing slot machines, penny slots right now. And then they should get around to doing some coverage of the draft. And of course, we'll have post-draft coverage tomorrow. I'm sure we're probably doing I could look. I should probably know this, but we're probably doing a pre-draft thing on Saturday and then post-draft on Saturday as well. The post-drafts will all be live. We'll have a bunch of videos to crank out for some of the bigger stuff that happens. So make sure and subscribe to the channel, rate and review. We got anybody. Well, I don't know if we have enough time for a last word. We got to be safe to get out of here. So I will thank all you guys for hanging with us for the whole pre-draft show. Excellent stuff as always. Hopefully we make some cash, win some bets, win some props, and we see the best players taken. For Breech, for Trap, for Josh, for Emory. I am Brinson. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you guys after the draft.